Hi, welcome back to the Deep Dive series, episode 15 now. As always, this is a tiny section from my full garage tour, which is linked down below, so chill out and enjoy that first if you haven't seen it yet. But we're going to look today at the first 10 of the 20 race cars I store in Office 3. So there's some nice cars, some nice builds, so let's get on with it. Floor 1 is all GT cars that you'll see at the weekend racing in the sort of GT3, GT4 type of events. And we're going to start though with a riddle. What do you get when you take the mattress from a baby's crib, some spray paint and some glue? Well, you get what GTA calls the armour on the side of the car, that ridiculous looking padding, and I assure you that if you buy some form of armoured car, you won't even see the armour on it, and I really hate the looks of it. I've only got 2 cars with it now, and I think even one of those is going to go because it looks horrible. But I'm keeping this one. The Paragon R armoured. I just think the car looks superb, and by turning it into a race car, it does at least disguise that stupid padding a bit. The car is of course based on the Bentley Continental, and my version here is on the GT3 race car. I love it, I love driving it. I think the only improvement would be to get rid of the armoured version, which I could never have back again, and perhaps buy another one so that I could build this car with smooth bodywork. But as I say, I think the livery and stuff sort of disguises that. Moving on then to the Jester RR. Based of course on the latest generation, I think it's the 5th of the Toyota Supra, and this one is based on the GT4 50 edition. So what is the 50 edition? Well, Toyota were very successful with the GT4 race version of their car, and they sold 50 of them, and they were very proud of this, so they decided to make another 6 which all look like the one you see here with this sort of matte orangey red paint colour. And they made them as a little celebration. They cost the same amount of money as the GT4 race car itself, which is £175,000, and they are effectively still the race car. The people who bought them can use them on track days, etc, etc. They're the same car. The slight cheek of putting it in this garage is they weren't the actual ones that were raced, they were the other 50. But anyway, I think it looks really good, and very pleased with it. Moving on now to a build that I think you've probably seen on the channel before, and perhaps even other people do before, which is the Italia GTB Custom, done up as McLaren's GT3 car based on the 650S. They gave of course such a good livery for it that I think many people have built this one. I've now rebuilt it as a 570S, but you know, those wide arches, they don't really look right on it. I might find something else in fact to do with the car. I've also complained, I think, a little bit in the past that of course we have the cabin on it from the Trion Nemesis, and so you have to squint a little to see the McLaren look of the car anyway. But still, it's not a bad car to drive, it's not the best. It does look nice in this collection, so we'll leave it at that and move on to the Lynx. Based of course on the Jaguar F-Type, and in this case I built a GT4 car. Now the one I have based it on is the Series Elite car, which you can see pictured here. Now that is a series that was restricted to drivers of over 50, and sadly that means I could have entered that, although I would have needed the money to buy an F-Type GT4 and all the support, so that was the end of that. The livery here isn't all that close, but from memory there are only 2 racing liveries on the car, so you are a bit restricted when you're building race cars, but they do give you at least all the parts. Now I love looking at, listening to and driving this car, and it makes it another tragedy that Rockstar have removed this one for sale, but it is one I recommend for when it comes back through one of the usual sources. Moving on now to the Pariah, known of course for being an exceptionally fast car in the sports class. Built mine round an Aston Martin V12 Zagato race car because ultimately this car has a rather muddled identity, but the bulk of it's based on the V12 Zagato. Now the issue is when you try to build a race car, that you don't really have liveries for the car, so it looks like a race car that's just been delivered before it's actually been painted up for the track. It's not ideal, I did last year also an endurance race car in the very pale blue and black. It was the same though, I couldn't put the race numbers on it. Perhaps this is a car that is best left as a road car. So let's move now to what is possibly the best looking car on this floor. It's the Comet S2, but in this case based on the 911 GT3 Cup car. I'm a massive fan of the British Touring Car Championship, and one of the many support races in that championship series is the 911 GT3 Cup series. But I don't think that we are the only country. I think there's GT3 Cup races in loads of different countries around the world. I have 2 of these Comet S2s, and you know, I think I could own about 10 of them. Firstly, they look really good. They look so close to the real life car. You know, we've got some weird Porsches in this game. This is not one of them. It looks spectacular. And secondly, it is chock full of customization options for all sorts of road versions and race versions. And as a little heads up, I've part filmed already. I'm going to do a manufacturer's catalogue with 5 unique real-world 911 builds. This will be one of them. But what I can tell you now is it's very hard to match the liveries in game with real ones. So the recipe to build a 911 Cup car is quite simple. You want to start with either silver or white for the base paint, because most of them are. Pick a livery that you think works well with that. And then on the wheels you want to really go mainly for silver or black or this sort of tan colour, because those are the 3 wheel colours you normally see. Add all the appropriate race bits for the GT3 Cup that works in your country, and bingo, you've got the car. And of course it drives really well as well. It's a tiny fraction behind the Cabrio, but a fantastic car to own. Looks really good. I've gone on too much, so we need to move upstairs now for the Jägermeister collection, which was a new collection for this year. I think it looks absolutely stunning. It's quite sad, in fact, that I've now rebuilt these cars as other ones. I was quite, I was gutted actually to lose 1 or 2 of these builds. Starting with a car that's already had its own dedicated episode, which was the Zion Classic, based on the 635 CSI, and I've based mine around a Group A touring car from the 80s. As it has its own episode, I will urge you to watch that. It's linked below for any more details. But I would advise, it is discontinued, but do get one when it comes out. You can build a number of touring cars on it as well as the road car, and if you like classics, you like this one. And moving on now then to the BF Club, based on the Volkswagen Golf Mark 1, is it? Or maybe almost the Mark 2, or is it the Polo? It's a little bit of a mix of all of those, and that's jolly handy because it means you can build any of them. And so here I've gone for a Jägermeister sponsored Mark 1 Golf race car. Loads of customization available on the Club. I don't drive it much. I'm not into the front wheel drive cars in the game at all, but it's a really good fun car to build things on. But moving on to the next one, I can't stop looking at this. I've always had a soft spot for the E30 M3, but in the game I've always felt slightly let down by it when I build it as a road car. That there's something about it never looks quite as good as it could. But as a race car, when you put those much bigger wheels on with the low profile tyres that really fill the arches, and then you give it the right livery, the right colour, it is, I know I use the word stunning a lot, but it really, really is stunning. I think it looks fantastic. And of course it's a great car to drive in the game as well. So overall, highly commended car. Well, before I explode with a massive case of classic race car fandom, it's time to hit the last car. And that is the Anis S80RR. This is a really great handling car. It's a really fun one to own. And it's absolutely mind-bogglingly mystifying that this is no longer available either. Definitely one to grab when it comes back, in my opinion. Now, I know it's based more around one of the Nissan endurance cars, but of course a lot of these endurance cars look sort of the same, and a lot of parts have been used. So it's quite possible actually to build this Porsche 962 endurance car and it still to look pretty convincing, and it of course helps to finish off very nicely this Jägermeister sub-collection. It gets built so often as the yellow Nissan that it's actually really rather nice, I think, to see it here. Well, this is where this collection ends. We carry on through endurance racing cars and on to open wheel and a few others, but that will be for next week, and I'm really looking forward to sharing those with you then. I really hope you enjoyed this deep dive and it's given you some inspiration perhaps for some different builds that you can do on the cars that you already own. And in fact, if you're putting together any forms of collections, especially things like a Jägermeister collection or other themed ones, do tell me about them down below. I'd love to hear that. I'm going to beg, of course, for a like. Likes and comments are the one thing that propel this video out there and tell everybody that somebody liked it, and maybe they'll watch it as well, which will help me grow the channel. And if you like real cars in GTA, then of course please do subscribe to the channel. You've reached the end now, for which I'm very grateful, and thank you so much for watching.